Hey, hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about Zk-Rollups. We have a fantastic panel here. I will jump right into it. So, what are Zk-Rollups? Explain it like I'm 5-year-old.
I'll hop in. Why not? What is a ZK rollup? If you are a 5-year-old that understands a base layer in a crypto system, no. Basically, the idea is that we have to scale the cryptographic systems that we're using, right? We have these networks. They only have a certain capacity. And we can start looking at this smart contracts and other things that we really trust and say, how can we use those to make something off-chain more secure, right? And so in the rollup context, what we do is we use like a smart contract on Ethereum, and we say, there's another protocol. How can we use a smart contract to make sure that that other protocol is following all the rules that it's supposed to do? So that protocol is not lying, it's not cheating, it's not stealing. And we use a fun new field of cryptography called zero knowledge, which lets us use cryptography to say, all that work being done off-chain, we can kind of check its receipts and make sure that it's doing everything it's supposed to do.
I'll try and testing. I'll explain this, maybe not 5, like 15. Who's here has solved the Sudoku puzzle before? Yeah, a few hands. Okay, here, if you want to check that the Sudoku is solved correctly, it's really trivial. You just check 1 to 9, 1 to 9, 1 to 9. Okay, that's basically the magic of ZK rollups, and this is why they will scale blockchains. The idea of ZK rollups is you can send the solved Sudoku to the base layer, and the base layer just needs to check that it's solved. The actual solving of the Sudoku happens off-chain. The reason why this is so important for blockchains is you get economies of scale that you don't have in any other blockchain context. On Ethereum, if we all want to transact, we bring up the gas prices. With ZK rollups, if you're anyways verifying a proof, you're paying that gas no matter what, so you want to put as many transactions as possible into that proof. If it's a hard Sudoku or easy Sudoku, it's the same difficulty to verify it. So that's why they're going to scale blockchains. That's how you can get to millions of daily active users.
Yeah, so I think those are all very complete answers. I think the only other thing I'd like to add, I don't think any of these a 5-year-old would understand, honestly. So I'm going to break the mold too. The only other thing is, like why a ZK rollup? Why not like an optimistic rollup? And so the key difference here, I think, is just on the security side. And so with an optimistic rollup, it's more so on the economic security, which is why ultimately at the withdrawal time you're seeing like 3 days, 7-day withdrawal time. Whereas with a ZK rollup, the proof itself is with every single batch of transactions. And so the withdrawal time from a user experience side is very different. You just pretty much, well, not instantaneous, but whatever the block production time may be.
Got it. I think to really understand, to really deconstruct a Zk rollup and to get a unique perspective on it, one of the questions that is interesting to me is, what is the gas economy like? Like for every 100 gas paid, how much of it goes to whom on these rollups? Can you this also brings out the differences between various rollups. I want you to briefly touch upon what the gas accounting and gas economy is like.
I guess
It
I
depends.
can start.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I mean, everyone here has probably used blockchain, and when you use blockchain, especially Ethereum or an EVM, you pay gas fees, and so you're probably curious, where does my money go? Who's taking my money? I'll just talk a little bit on the data availability side because that's what we're really focused on right now. Data availability, call data specifically, is one of the major costs of any sort of transaction. And so the reason is because you've got essentially Ethereum isn't built to be like an AWS S3, right? It's not a storage system. It's not like Google Drive. It's not like Dropbox or something. But you still have to store data on chain. You have to recall that data, right? And so that data itself, the storage, the writing, the reading, it's very expensive. I think estimate is like 80-90% of the gas fee probably goes to that. And so, yeah, one of the things we're looking at in terms of reducing gas fees is we're actually integrating with Celestia for modular data availability, which means that we're now moving the call data from Ethereum over to posting on Celestia. Yeah, so that's one part of the fees. But I don't want to spoil the fun. You guys go.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Scroll, the answer is kind of interesting in that, like, it exists in one state now. It won't exist in this state forever. When you start looking at the architecture of how these networks are going to look once they hit full decentralization, right? There's lots of different roles that have to get played. And so at the moment, when you pay, I don't know, $1 in gas fees, most of that money actually ends up being burned on Ethereum. We are putting money into posting that data onto Ethereum, and then some of that money covers what we just have as the gas market on Scroll, right? And so that's there for different reasons, but we have basically abstracted away the prover costs and some other things from users, where at the final protocol design, that will actually be multi-dimensional gas markets that I hope the users never have to think about, but if they wanted to know, they could go down at the protocol level and understand where things are going. But at the moment, yeah, the vast majority is for data availability on Ethereum, and fortunately, I think it's going to be the highest it'll ever be, right? We have a lot of upgrades both in Ethereum coming out and also in our own protocol coming out that will both compress the transaction size and also just make storage a lot cheaper on Ethereum itself. So.
And I won't repeat what the others said. I'll just say one anecdote on gas prices. So when I first joined StarkWare, we have an app chain product separate to the public network. DYDX, we currently power DYDX v3. When I joined, it was 1,500 gas for a trade on DYDX, like when you amortize it based on the L1 gas costs. And now it's roughly 500 gas. It's reduced by 3x. The reduction there isn't because of DA costs going down in Ethereum. It's just because when you have more their activity picked up, you have more transactions in a proof, your gas costs stay roughly constant on Ethereum. It's not I'm oversimplifying, but roughly constant on Ethereum. And therefore, the more activity you have, the more those gas costs go down on a per transaction basis.
I also just want to add anecdotally as well. I remember when like Ethereum first came out, and it was supposed to, I don't know if you guys all remember this, the quote was, eliminate the middleman, right? Get rid of the middleman. Why is the middleman taking all the fees and everything and then saving the scraps for the people that are actually working, right? And the whole use case, right? The golden state of this was to have a decentralized Uber where Uber doesn't take 50% and then leave the rest for the Uber driver who's doing all the work. The irony here is that now we're in this state where we've eliminated the middleman, and the result is something much more expensive and unscalable. So I think this is something that also needs to be thought about in terms of what's the future state of Ethereum, and what's the relationship of Ethereum with all the L2s within its ecosystem. And I think the Ethereum. The pathway of Ethereum, they're kind of thinking about it as well with proto-dank sharding, all these other EIPs that are focused on facilitating and fostering more ecosystems of L2s, because they do want to move the transactions off to L2s, because the L1 gas fees are just, they're crazy.
Any other comments on the economies of scale? I think despite the concerns our friend has raised, the economies of scale still are super beneficial. Any other comments that you have?
Just that it's a super great feature of ZK, right? That's the beauty of what we're doing, and why it's so exciting to see it be kind of a viable narrative of saying as we onboard more and more and more users, the thing just becomes more accessible in these ways.
I'm not sure how technical the audience is, but I can talk about economies of scale for hours. One, there are different designs with Zk-Rollups. You send the proof and the state update effectively to Ethereum, or to the base layer. Now, you don't necessarily need to send the individual transactions that came on your layer 2. Unlike optimistic rollups, where you need to have some sort of representation of each individual transaction. Some architectures do send the individual transactions compressed, but they do it. So in terms of economies of scale, if all you need is the state update, you don't even need those individual transactions recorded on Ethereum. And all you're doing is sending a proof and a state update, boom, you've got massive scale.
What are sort of like the major milestones we have hit in the last 6 to 12 months? If you have to like pick a couple of milestones, what would those be?
For Scroll, we launched our mainnet, which was a huge deal for our milestones, right?
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah, we launched our mainnet too.
Kind of a big deal. I don't know. And so that's something that's been in the works. We took a long time intentionally to be very, very safe about how we approached our launch and to be very methodical about it. We built our own kind of ZK stack. A lot of it was built in open source collaboration with other teams, but in terms of the actual ZK network, the EVM network, that was our own code, right? So we had to make sure that we went through a very rigorous auditing process. We went through 3 different test nets, and really wanted to spend the time to just make sure that we identified obviously any security issue, but also any like developer experience issue. We wanted it to be as smooth as possible for existing Solidity devs to just jump onto Scroll and have it feel like one-to-one with Ethereum. So
I'll talk about this from the industry's perspective, not StarkWare or StarkNet specifically. I think 12 months ago, I probably wouldn't have been on a panel with only Zk-Rollup teams. There would have been optimistic rollups sitting next to me, and maybe even other like side chains or L1s. What's really changed in the past 6 to 12 months is like this unanimous agreement that not just Zk-Rollups are the future. I think that was always clear that they were endgame, but actually the production readiness is closer than we all think. I'm personally like surprised if you think like there are big optimistic rollups with billions of TVL that don't even support fraud proofs. When you have ZK rollups that do submit proofs to Ethereum. 6 to 12 months ago, that was not clear. We thought that optimistic rollups would be faster to production, and that'd be like the intermediate step to ZK rollups. I think what we've learned is we actually like just jumped that step.
Yeah, well, I already spoiled the surprise earlier. We launched our mainnet too. But also a little bit more on the industry side. So a couple of things that are really striking to me, and all of it kind of goes back to scalability and how we define scalability, right? Like if you think about it in like 2013, 2014, right? Scalability was basically forking Bitcoin and increasing the block size. Forking Bitcoin and trying to do like block production at a faster speed, right? No VMs, no sort of actual ecosystem of products, just transacting in a decentralized peer-to-peer manner. Then you fast forward to 2017, and you've got scalability as defined as purely TPS, as like forks of Ethereum EVMs or even other alt VMs, right? Like I think Neo, for example, was like Java-based, and Alf was like, I don't know, C#, I think. And so like the battle began on the L1 side with Turing completeness. That was obviously didn't really work out well because no one really uses much except Ethereum now. And now we're in a state in 2021, 2022, where we started seeing the emergence of L2s as the new solution, as the new sort of problem to solve for scalability. And like it's great what we're doing here, but like what is the solution? How is scalability going to be defined in like 5 years, 10 years from now? And I think there is a few different points of convergence. And so my prediction is that what we're all here building is amazing technology. And I think that amazing technology is going to go off to essentially be scaled out, not vertically in terms of like someone else forks it and then builds an ecosystem, but eventually horizontally, right? Sharing state across multiple L2s, having ephemeral L2s, almost like a cloud computing model. And that essentially kind of shoots ourselves in the foot for the work that we're doing in one sense, because essentially we're all going to become a commodity. But I think that's the fate of infrastructure, right? You essentially become a commodity, especially when it's open source infrastructure, right? And so I do see a state in 5-10 years from now, hopefully, where scalability is no longer thought of as one individual sort of platform, one individual ecosystem trying to support as many applications as possible, and more so layers of, or not layers, but homogeneous sort of deployments of L2s, L3s, et cetera, more in like a load balanced state to support the actual application load.
More concretely, what can we expect in the next 6 to 12 month kind of time frame? What are the milestones around the corner?
I can take this. Okay, this here I will talk about StarkNet specifically. To the point about data availability, so I guess it's relevant to everyone, 4844 will probably be live in the next 6 to 12 months, but who knows. That should reduce DA costs for everybody. Then on StarkNet specifically, we'll have what's called volition mode, which means you can actually store the DA off-chain. Off-chain just means not on Ethereum, so you can just leave it with StarkNet and just send the state root on-chain. Those two should really reduce gas costs by like 80-90%. And then beyond that, fee markets, paying in the native token, paymaster, all these cool features, that's just like in the roadmap for the next few quarters.
Yeah, sorry, it's a little bit hard to hear, so I didn't even know if you asked specifically for Zk-Rollups or for any other things. But I think when I'm thinking about, maybe it's further than 6 to 12 months, but thinking about that progression, I'm thinking of developments that are happening on Ethereum itself and in the Ethereum ecosystem, and then just like the maturation of these rollup projects that I think we're doing a great job, but we have a lot of work still to go, right? I think until for the audience that might not be familiar, we have a lot of things we call training wheels on these systems, right? So if we really want these to be fully robust, fully censorship resistant, scalable things that we are excited about, and that really have all the qualities that we want in a decentralized network, there's still a lot of work to do to decentralize different parts of the stack, to really integrate different things for censorship resistance in there. And I'm really excited to see the progress in those engineering and research efforts, because there's a bits of both. There's some places where it's pretty well fleshed out as a problem, and there's places where I think there's a lot of research that's still going to be uncovered as we're getting into it.
And I think also, I think this next year we're going to realize how much of a commodity we actually are in terms of being an L2, just because, this just spinning up an L2 is like spinning up a cloud server nowadays, right? You've got rollup as a service providers integrating on the ZK EVM side, integrating on the optimistic side, right? Sure, there's different flavors, but at the end of the day, right, what you come to realize is that the applications and the deployment they're not coming to us because, Manta Network has some really amazing, outstanding feature that no one else has, right? And by that same nature, I think people are going to realize, especially developers, it's the same sort of journey, right? Who is going to be able to provide you the most support? I think that's where a lot of the competition is going to start emerging on the L2 side. But then at the same time, right, there's other alternatives for apps now, because L2s are so easy to deploy. Right, and I'm not talking about scroll level L2. I mean, credit to you guys, but and StarkWare. I see a lot of app chains now, right? And these app chains, instead of deploying as L3s on top of L2s, they just choose to deploy as their own L2s. And these are, so the competition here on the L2 side is not just with other L2s, but as an alternative, as an app chain versus even as an L3. So I think we'll see a lot of that emergence, and just fighting for sort of the business model and the sustainability from there.
How many of you here are developers, entrepreneurs, devpreneurs? Okay, that's a reasonable number. Okay, so then my next question is, what's your pitch to the developers here?
My pitch for developers here. Okay. if you develop for the EVM, you can be on, I don't know, it's the same thing as most of the L2s and rollups, that you can have cheaper transaction costs, higher throughput, and just generally make your application more accessible. I think Scroll right now has certain benefits on the ecosystem side, but also has benefits in if you are doing things like applied ZK in deploying verifiers on top of the EVM. We have like more precompile support than the other ZK rollups and some other features that are just nice to haves, but also features that I think all the teams will flesh out in the next 6 to 12 months. So I do think, as Kenny mentioned, like there's a strong aspect about finding teams that, as an ecosystem, align with your values and are interested in the things that you're interested in, and that you're building with the communities that you want to be building with.
So StarkNet developers write in Cairo, which is a domain-specific language that was developed at StarkWare. So every developer in our ecosystem has proactively chosen to be part of the StarkNet community. We're not competing with EVM developers from other chains. So we are Ethereum aligned. We're so Ethereum aligned that's why we have Cairo. People don't appreciate that. No, but seriously, because when you're committed to the ZK world and you want to have code that's optimized for proving systems, you go to Cairo. So there's a strong community of about 2,000 active developers. We encourage you to come there. And we got some good runs on the board. The founder of StarkWare, Eli Ben-Tasson, he's invented the Stark protocol. Validium, data availability was invented at StarkWare. Shared Prover. All of these things are just, we feel we are at the forefront here.
We too have these things. But specifically for developers and projects, I think one of the things that we really like to bring to the table is everyone on our team. So what I mean by that is if you think about like, I don't know if you guys follow the whole TikTok saga. I know TikTok's banned in India. I know that because I tried to access TikTok so many times. But you know, and the way that TikTok works is like, yeah, there's this certain amount of organic sort of growth for you know, content creators, but also TikTok can work really closely with content creators and turn them into, you know, the stars that they're meant to be, right? I think for us, we take on a very similar philosophy, especially because Manta, right? Like we launched mainnet very early. It's about 2 months ago, right? So we're nascent and we work very closely with projects. And so what does that mean for projects that are deploying on Manta? It means that when you come into our ecosystem, right, we're bringing our QA team, we're bringing our UX team, we're bringing our marketing team, our ecosystem success team. We huddle with you on like at least a weekly basis. Whenever you reach out, I guarantee you we'll respond within 24 hours and we'll come with solutions with you, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to grow. And in order for us to grow, we have to make sure that our ecosystem projects grow. So, you know, like we want to bring all the tools 100% to the table and make sure that everyone's successful.
If I can maybe just so we're not seeming too similar, put a little bit of distance between us. I would say that that's not the experience you'll get at Scroll. I hope that you get a quick response in terms of questions answered and anything else. But one of the things that we take very, very seriously on our ecosystem side and our support side is that like we want to be a scaling layer for Ethereum. And with that, that means that we need to take the responsibility of being a credibly neutral substrate for all these projects very seriously. So like, what does that mean? Well, it means that we don't pick winners in our ecosystem, and we don't want to like position one project above another to where basically it's got the Scroll stamp of approval, right? Because ecosystems do have boundaries, and we want to make sure that as projects come to Scroll, of course we want to be supporting them on a technological layer, but yeah, I think that's a kind of interesting distinction. Like, we're not going to throw our marketing team alongside you. We're going to like help you get your word out, but it's going to be a quite different experience than us throwing money at you or something else. But.
There you go. You have two different perspectives on the collaboration.
That's
okay.
what we're looking for.
I want everyone here to zoom in a little more. Can you talk about like a couple of examples of differentiated experiences or differentiated dApps that are built on your networks? Maybe like pick 1 or 2 examples and talk about them so that everybody here gets a peek into the future, that sort of examples.
I can just talk production numbers with our technology. So we had the StarkX app chains. If you've heard of Sorare or Immutable, DYDX, Apex, RhinoFi, I'm going to forget a few names. They're all running app chains without prover. They've done over 140 million NFTs minted, 140 million, and secured on Ethereum at a gas price of sub 50 gas per mint. This is numbers in production on Ethereum, not like academic numbers. Like we only know it's sub 50 gas because we've seen the Ethereum numbers. We've settled over $1 trillion of cumulative volume traded, most of it DYDX, but not only DYDX. Apex done over $20 billion of volume. Like the numbers in production of this prover technology that we now use the same prover for StarkNet are unfathomable. If you would do every transaction on StarkX, you would have done it on Ethereum. It would have cost, we estimate, 500,000 ETH in transaction fees, like over $1 billion. Now, obviously, you wouldn't have done it on Ethereum, but that's the whole point of these scaling solutions, that you have L2s to do these transactions that you would not have otherwise done. So yeah, I think like numbers in production are a really good leader. Obviously, the others will presumably catch up. But if you're asking me about like some anecdotes on our end, I'll share those.
Please, any examples you want to share?
Silencing us with that long time in production, high numbers. No. Yeah, so I would say that our differentiators, like we are fairly new to mainnet, right? This was time's a weird thing, but what, October that we hit mainnet. So what we've done is like we really hit the ground running, trying to really focus on our developer ecosystem. What that means is that, you know, there's the developer experience of building on the EVM and making sure that works really well, and you don't have weird compiler issues or having to like jump through hoops. But there's also all these like dev dependencies that are really important that a lot of chains lack, right? As a developer, you're used to an environment where you have Etherscan. Maybe you have Chainlink. Maybe you have official Uniswap v3 contracts. Like these are all things that you want to plug and play into. More are just coming into my head because I do developer relations, the graph. But so you want all of these things or canonical deployments of stablecoins to like make a really, you want to have clear expectations for the environment that you're deploying in and building in. And that's what we've focused a lot on. And so the things that I've mentioned are things that have been kind of early wins for us in getting them integrated and on board. And we're really excited to have some more lined up in the near future. And we really just want to make it so that as a developer, you show up and it's not like you have 4 of the 5 things that you want, that you actually, it is the L2 where you have all of the things that you want to be able to build the product that you want to build.
And on Manta, how many of you guys have heard of the mental poker framework? All right, great. Can you explain? No? Okay, I'll explain. All right, so when you and I, we play a game of chess, it's very simple to replicate this on chain because it's complete information, right? So we know exactly what the board looks like. We know where all the pieces are. And if I say knight to d4, you know exactly where the knight goes, and you still know where all the pieces are. I know where all the pieces are. In other words, that state of the game, that snapshot of the game, we can put it on chain. And when we put it on chain, it doesn't matter if someone looks on chain to see the state of the game, because that's the whole point. You have all the information you need in order to make your next decision. But now let's imagine you and I wanted to play a game of poker, right? How do we play that just in our heads? Right? Like you can't really do that because we have to somehow agree that the shuffle is done correctly and the card that you were dealt is the card that you were dealt and I was given a fair card, but we can't know each other's card, but somehow we still have to agree, right? And so mental poker is kind of this challenge that I don't remember when it was first written, but essentially it kind of tries to solve that exact dilemma, right? How do you create an incomplete information game? And in blockchain sense, right, how do you translate that on chain? How do you build poker on chain? And so we have what we refer to as universal circuits. I know there's only like 30 seconds left, so I'll just breeze through this, blah, 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 universal circuits. But more importantly, deployment of universal circuit. There is a fully on-chain Texas Hold'em game on Manta called Zk-Hold'em, which uses fully homomorphic encryption in Zk to deliver a solution to that mental poker problem, which is pretty cool because this has kind of been out there for a while now. So you guys can try it out. It's on mainnet currently. Yes, gas fees are high because homomorphic encryption in Zk, but also we're again integrating with Celestia sometime later this year, and so that'll reduce gas fees significantly, and hopefully you guys can try out Zk-Hold'em in a very user-friendly, financially frictionless way.
Cool. So the time is up. One final question. What does crypto mean to you in one word?
Start on that side.
Only one word.
Can I explain the word or just say the word?
Say the word and maybe.
Okay, so crypto for me means globalization. I think that we've attempted globalization in Internet 2.0, and I think we've utterly failed at it because the globalization approach that we have in traditional Internet is essentially, okay, in the US and Europe we use PayPal. In India, you guys don't use PayPal. What do you guys use? Like, UPay. Yeah, exactly. And in China, you use Tencent, you use WeChat Pay, Alipay, right? All broken, fragmented systems. Whereas we have this opportunity to truly be peer-to-peer, borderless, not think about specific geographical points, right? Like, I mean, I'm assuming that everyone from all around the world uses Uniswap, right? And then, like we have sort of household names that kind of transcend geography, transcend borders, and I think that's really the opportunity here because I think we're a little bit outdated if we continue to live in a world where we still have to deal with these internet factions of the early 2000s, 1990s. Yeah.
Empowerment. I just think that it's so cliche, but yeah, you have a lot of control.
All the words are cliche.
I'm just very excited about the idea that you're in control of your money. Yeah, and you have that self-sovereignty.
I'm just going to do the word and then explain the word. No, I mean, it's like there's a sovereignty thing that I think is so important, but I feel like coordination is essential for sovereignty to work in real society. So I'd say coordination and let people fill in the gaps.
Cool. We're up on time. Thank you so much. I wish we could keep going. Chalo, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.